Afternoon. For the one or two people in the room that don't know me, I'm Dave Nichols, and I'll be your MC this afternoon. What a great crowd to celebrate a great event, a great student center honoring a great man. I want to start off first, though, by introducing the family. And Jan, I'd like you to stand up. Jan Riley. And we set this date, and I gave Jan a bunch of dates, and we're so happy to have Brian here. Brian, stand up, from Washington, D.C. And my successful advisee, Dr. Steve Riley, DVM, from Bucyrus. And Steve has his wife, Kelly, stand up, and Cooper. And Connors are back in, Cole is back at Bucyrus playing basketball. So that's why he's not here today. So it's great to see so many of you here on this Friday afternoon. And to start things off, I'm going to call on Dr. Evan Tickemeyer, our interim department head. He has served in that role as a little over a year, and he's in his second round of evaluations we've just done. He's done a great job leading us in this time. So Evan, for your welcome.
Thanks, Dave. I've only got like half hour's worth of speech here. So, well, good afternoon and welcome here to the Jack Riley Student Center that we'll be naming today. I'm pleased to see a great crowd we have here. I'm glad to see a lot of students, and particularly I want to thank the family, Jan and Steve and Brian, for coming in for this event today. It's important to us to have you here. Over the last year, we've made a lot of significant changes to this facility, made some nice upgrades to the facility. I think the students have found it very useful over the last, well, this semester is really when it's been open with these new facilities. The timing on this was really quite good because of the library fire that we had over in Hale. Hale was closed over this last year, and so to have an alternative facility that's this nice for the students, I think, was pretty ideal for us. Now, we didn't plan it that way, but it just worked out perfectly for us to help the students out. And we'll get them in front of you in just a little bit later, but I want to be sure that I give credit to the people that did all the work here, and Sabrina Alt and John Wolf are really the two folks who did a lot of the work to make this happen. And so, and again, you'll see them later, but if you need to thank somebody, those are the two that really put the effort into making this a success. Jack Riley was the head of the department for 17 years and started back in 1987, and he hired me, and for that I'll always be thankful. The rest of you hopefully don't hold that against him. He hired at least 20 of our other faculty that are on staff now, and I'm guessing that he hired our interim dean now as well. Is that right? No. Okay, I'm wrong on that one. Okay, well, I tried. Should always check my facts beforehand, I guess. So anyway, my comments this morning really are based on my experiences with Jack as an administrator, because that's been my experience with him, and hopefully some of our other speakers will touch on his teaching and advising experiences that he had here at K-State prior to him serving as an administrator. Our department really had great success during Jack's tenure as head. He led us through some difficult issues. He led us through a few transformative changes, I'd say, and he made a few changes like expanding the dairy bar that at the time we might not have thought was a big deal, but it really put a good face on our department for many years thereafter. And I'm sure that everybody would have a different opinion about what Jack did that was maybe most important for us as a department, but one thing I'll comment on is that he really led us into an era of increasing our research activities and having larger graduate programs. Notably though, and this is the hard part of it, anybody could maybe do that, but he did that growth in research and he managed it in a way that it really didn't take away from our teaching and our extension programs, but rather it kind of augmented them and worked synergistically with those other programs to make the whole department a bit more successful. And so that would be my personal comments there. You know, in watching Jack as department head, and he was my department head I think for about 12 years, here I guess I noted maybe three key philosophies, and maybe these weren't his philosophies, but at least how I viewed how he served as department head and what I thought must have been his thinking about things. three things, concepts that I've tried to follow as well. And the first one is do the right thing. There's certainly some situations where you know what the correct moral and appropriate action is, and I think Jack always stayed true to those principles. And so that was pretty important to see in him. Second one would be remember the stakeholders. Our key stakeholders include our students. Obviously, we're a university, we like to teach folks. Other stakeholders include the livestock industries in Kansas. It was always clear that Jack strongly valued our stakeholders, he valued our students, and he really expected the faculty to take to heart that importance of teaching students. The third area that I saw Jack really do well as an administrator is balance in all things. He balanced a lot of different expectations across the department, obviously to the extent possible, but he ensured that we met all the needs of the students and needs of the stakeholders as best possible with broad ranges of activities that we kept active with. And I always appreciated that. So he served us for 17 years as department head. Prior to that, I think he had about as long as a teacher and a researcher here at the university. If you go by the numbers, he taught more than 7,000 students, which is quite a few, and I'm sure they were all touched by his successes in the classroom. And again, I'm hoping that our other speakers might provide a bit more insight into those years of Jack's life. So certainly Jack left us with a lasting legacy, and I'm proud to be here today as we're getting ready to name the Jack Riley Student Center after him. And again, I just want to thank everybody for being here, and particularly Jan, Steve, Brian, for being here to join us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Evan. It's my privilege now to introduce a longtime friend, Dr. Gary Ali from University of Missouri. And Jack and Gary were very, very close as fellow faculty members. They were a great teaching team. Jack was kind of known as the ruminant guy, and Gary was the pig guy. It's funny how things change. In Gary's retirement now, he's a cow guy, which is kind of a neat deal. Think about that. He taught with Jack ASI 320. Gary Ali is a world-renowned swine nutritionist. He left here in 1987 to become head of the department at University of Missouri. He grew up in California, Missouri, I think. Is that right? Yeah, I used to say he grew up in California, it was Missouri. So he and Jack had that in common. So to share a little bit about Jack, the man and the teacher, I'm going to turn it over to my friend Gary Ali.
Thank you, Dave. It is a tremendous personal pleasure of mine to be here today to share a little bit in the dedication of the Jack Riley Student Center. My objective today is to tell you a little bit about the early years of Jack's life and tell you how he got to KSU. So maybe I'm as familiar with that part as anyone here. It's a very, very fitting tribute, I think, for Jack and the Riley family to have this dedicated in his name. And as Dave said, having known Jack for a long, long time, I think he would approve of what you've done, and in his usual way, he would be very humbled by what has been done. The other thing that's very important to me is Jack and I have known each other for a long, long time, and I'll give you the little story about how we first met. But our entire families have been very, very close. And so it's a double pleasure for Norma and I to be here today to share this honor with the Riley family. Jack is a native of Hamilton, Missouri. Hamilton is just a little bit north of Highway 36 in what I'd call north central Missouri. Now, we can play a little bit of Trivial Pursuit if you'd like to today. In addition to Jack Riley, there's another famous person that claims the same hometown. To give you a little hint, his first initials are JC, James Cash Penny. So the founder of all the J.C. Penny department stores, and he had a little tie to agriculture. We'll see now who remembers this. He was very, very, very successful, and his hobby was dairy cows. What breed of dairy cows? He may not have picked the best one, but in his case, that was a Guernsey. And so he donated his Guernsey herd to the University of Missouri, and as department heads and others would realize, it's always important to get a little money with the gift. So he donated enough money that we could buy 750 acres about 5 miles west of Columbia, and that's where the J.C. Penny Dairy Farm is located. So those are the two famous people I know from Hamilton, Missouri. Jack grew up in this small town, and they were very active in animal agriculture. I always remember them showing sheep. Jack probably showed some other animals, but he and his brother were very big in sheep. And so after graduating from high school, he enrolled at the University of Missouri to major in animal husbandry. Got a BS degree in 62, an MS degree in 63. And then he went and worked as a livestock extension agent for 2 years. And then he came back to the university, and he filled in for a person that was on, a faculty member that was on sabbatical leave. And so here I was a senior at that time when Jack was an instructor. And remember, Dave, how we used to have those requirements that you couldn't deviate from if you were going to major in animal science? I had 2 production courses. Of course, swine being one, beef being the second one. But what do you take for the third one? And so I finally chose sheep. And Clifford's Faith, I thought of you because Jack taught sheep production that semester, and you had to be a really good instructor to keep my interest in sheep production for the entire semester. But Jack did it. So I had a whole lot of fun with that little fact, because for years then, and the years that we taught the principles of feeding here, why the students always have a little interest. Well, what is this co-instructor, what's he like? And I'd say, oh, Dr. Riley is an excellent instructor. I said, he really cares about students. He wants you to learn, always willing to give you some extra help. And they said, well, how do you know all that? And I said, because I had him as an instructor. And they'd look in a little bit and said, well, you don't look that much different in age. I said, oh yes, he's older, you know. And so we had lots of fun with that, because as Dave Nichols said here, we team taught principles of feeding for 13 or 14 years. And then when I went over to that neighboring institution, I had another super ruminant nutritionist to work with, Evan, I think you would know, by the name of Monty Curley. And there the tables were just returned, just reversed. And that Dr. Curley would say, oh, Dr. Alley's so damned old, he has every metabolic disease known to man. Jack got his PhD in 68? Yep, 68. And so he was off then to Western Illinois University in a predominantly teaching role until 71 when he came here. I still remember as vividly as if it were yesterday. Dr. Good came to a faculty meeting and said, Dr. Calvin Drake is going to be leaving, and I want everybody to think about who's the best qualified person that we can find to take this position. Well, Dr. Good kind of always kept track of people on all judging teams, all livestock judging teams, regardless of which institution you might have been with. And so he remembered that Jack was on the judging team. Right after the faculty meet, I made a mad dash to Dr. Good's office and said, Dr. Good, I know exactly who you should hire. I said, he's a super teacher, PhD in ruminant nutrition, 2 years as a livestock specialist, understands the needs of the clientele. This would be a super choice. So that's how Jack Riley got to KSU, Manhattan, Kansas, 1971, in a 70% teaching, 30% research appointment, and in charge of the beef research unit. So you will see how our careers intertwined for a little bit. I came here in 1970. Jack came a year later. I left in early '87 to go be department head at University of Missouri. Jack didn't came. Jack was made department head here in the fall of '87. So a few similarities by us Missouri boys. And then, as already been mentioned, Jack spent 17 years as department head. And we have several former department heads in the audience here today. And probably more of them were my vintage. About 5 years is all I could take. You know, but if you look at this department, and as Evan said, how I judge department heads is how successful were you in hiring the faculty you wanted to hire? What happened to your graduate student program and your undergraduate student program? And Evan reminded me of one other very important characteristic of Jack Riley. It's hard to maintain a balance in your program. Very, very difficult, because you get pulled so many ways. Oh, we should have more basic research. We should have more applied research. We should have more NIH grants. And to me, Jack Riley never forgot that one of the unique purposes of the land-grant university is to educate the students of the state. And I look at this program and how it's grown and said, you've had some great department heads. And I hope that continues, because balance is a very difficult thing to maintain. So today I want to simply close by saying thank you all so much for giving this great man a tremendously deserving honor in creating the Jack Riley Student Center. And maybe Evan told me what I needed to know, but I want to congratulate everyone here, the faculty, the staff, for putting this together and getting it done. And getting it done in a timely manner. We've got to do things while we still remember the person we're honoring. So thank you all for doing that, and thank you for this honor of being a part of this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Next up, I'm going to call the podium Curtis Castor. This department for a long time has worked off a system where we had coordinators, and in 1988, Curtis said Jack inherited Curtis as research coordinator, and he was also associate head. I think there are times we forget how lucky we really are, but not every day is great. And one day I was not having one of those good days. I remember running into Curtis and I said, "I'm sure there's a plan around here, but I'm having a damn time seeing the plan." About an hour later, Jack pokes his head in with this big smile. He says, "You need help on the plan?" I knew then if I didn't want Jack to know something, probably I should say it to Curtis at the time. So, Kurt, come up and tell us a little bit about Jack, the administrator.
Thanks, Dave. My, what an honor to be a part of this today. I just really consider myself fortunate to have been with Jack Riley for several years and to learn from him things that how he did business, and I just am truly thankful for that. And guys, you look around here and you see the people that are here over the years that remember the same things about Jack and celebrate the fact that he was truly, Jan, truly a wonderful man and a wonderful administrator. Now, these guys have already talked, and so they said most of the stuff I was going to say. But let me add a few more details to the story about Jack as an administrator. Now, I could probably stop right now and say he was the right man for the right time. And I will explain that just a bit more here in a minute. When asked by Dr. Nichols, Dave said, would I be willing to come up and say a few words? And I said, "Oh, you bet." I said, "I'd be glad to." And Dave immediately, Dave Nichols was my first TA, and he remembers how I might talk longer than his limits on this presentation, Dave. So I'm going to be compliant. Okay. Now, to have this to reflect a focus on the students is really important, and he considered the students very important to you all, and what he did as department head has carried on through the years and has set the stage for having students being a primary focus. In 1988, I think it was 88, but now I heard 87 and I changed it in my notes. Guys, listen, if you're working with somebody that's my age, it's a good chance that I'm going to mix up the years. So, Jack asked me, he said, "Curtis, how would you like to work with me and in the department?" And I responded immediately. I said, "I would love to." And Jack, with a big grin, said, "Hey, it's not going to be that great." He said, "This is going to be a challenge." And Jan, I found it to be great. It was working with Jack. We had a good time. It was fun, and it was productive for a number of reasons. So from 1987 to 2001, I learned from Jack in a number of ways. Some of them have already been mentioned, but let me add to some of them just a bit. Learned from Jack how to lead. And not everybody does it exactly the same way, but the way Jack did it worked. He was as calm and as thoughtful as anybody I have ever known in the face of challenges that happened during the time he was department head. I never saw him lose it. Dave, I didn't see him lose it. He may have gone in the office and screamed, "Where's Daisy Fielder?" Daisy, you may have heard him scream a time or two. And Jan, when he came home at night, he may have screamed. But I never saw that. And calm, thoughtful in the face of a host of significant challenges. Compassionate, encouraging. And that was to all, guys. Students, which this represents, faculty, staff, including Dave, as we talked the other day, janitors. Jack was always encouraging. He knew that it took everybody to make the ship float, and he did that. And I truly appreciate it from that. Now, with all those nice characteristics, he was strong in what he did. And let me just recount a couple of things that he did that maybe not everybody saw it the way I saw it or saw the details that I saw. But he made some decisions, quite frankly, folks, that have kept the infrastructure and what goes on in animal sciences and industry at Kansas State University in place. Okay? He did what was right. We heard that just a few minutes ago, even when others disagreed. And I mean, not just a little bit disagreed, but others disagreed. Some of the powers to be wanted these units out north to be somewhere else so that there could be economic development in that area. And Jack knew that the uniqueness of the department here was having those production units close by, and he fought to keep it that way. And again, not everybody agreed with that, but he stood his ground. And I'm going to make a comment here that I think had a significant impact on that. He was respected by folks around here, but also out in the state. The previous department head, Don Good, had the same support. And somebody said, well, if Jack doesn't want to do it, we better not do it because of the support in the state. And consequently, we still have the production units out here. And therefore, Kansas State University is unique in a lot of respects because of that. Without Jack's strong stand, the total animal science and industry infrastructure for students and faculty and staff would not be intact as it is today. And I want to add to Dr. Alley's comment about thanks to everybody that has contributed to make this happen here. And I just, it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to support what is being dedicated to Jack. I've been out of the mainstream the last few years, but I still recall fondly the time with Jack Riley. And everybody here owes Jack Riley a hand of applause. Let's give it to him. Did I stay on time?
You're fine. I didn't know if you were done. Some of the young faculty wouldn't remember that when we were under renovation in 1987, half of the crew was in the basement of Moore Hall, 2 to a room, and the rest of the crew was in Call Hall. My office mates were Miles McKee and Guy Kirikoff and Virgie Call, and what is the chicken room today. I was fortunate, always have been, to have great bosses. I'm one of the few people who can say I've never had a bad boss. I'm pretty lucky, and I know that. I got to find out that Jack was going to be my next boss. On Saturday morning, I ran into Don while we were still in call, and he said, "Dave, my prayers have been answered. Jack Riley's going to be your next boss." Before I go further, though, Evan alluded to it early on, but there are 2 people, I don't want to forget to do this, because this project took a lot of work. Ben Brent was commenting on the way in, but some of it long enough, we realized what this was cattle pens. If you think back long enough, this wasn't a student lounge. It was a big racetrack that ran clear around this building until we renovated in 1988. But thanks to Sabrina Alt, Sabrina, you come up here, and John, you come up here. You can't hide back behind the shadows here. Thanks to Sabrina Alt, she put this together. There were times I doubted, and I've already told her I was wrong. And John Wolf and the Meats Lab crew, as hard as they worked. And too long ago, I heard a guy say, if you work hard on things you don't really care about, it creates a lot of stress. If you work hard on things you care about, that's passion. And these 2 had a passion to make this happen. I want you all to give a round of applause to John Wolf. And when we get done today, look around and see what they did. Particularly, there's a bookcase back here that I still don't know how John got it cut right to fit in. So take a chance to do that. Jack was all about the students, and I thought it was only fitting when we put this together to have you hear from a couple of our best and brightest. Wyatt Durst, Taylor Bell. Wyatt Durst is from Morrowville, Kansas. He's a senior in animal science. If you go on social media, which I once in a while do, thanks to Angie, he currently gives news, the monthly news in animal science. Wyatt is from Morrowville, Kansas, up by Washington, and his mom and dad were students here a while ago. And with him also is Taylor Bell Matheny. Wyatt is on the judging team, has just finished up being on the livestock judging team, will graduate in May. Taylor Bell Matheny is from Mayslick, Kentucky. And Taylor Bell is a dual major in Ag Comm and in animal science. She was the National Hereford Queen, and now she serves on the National Junior Board of Directors for the American Hereford Association. So let's give a nice welcome to Taylor and Bell and Wyatt.
Well, thank you, Dave. And like you said, my name is Wyatt Durst, and I grew up on an animal science major here. I'm a senior and grew up on my family's farming and ranching operation just about an hour north of here. And I'm proud to be the 3rd generation of my family to attend Kansas State. And growing up in Kansas and being a Kansas native, I had the kind of unique opportunity to get to come to campus several times, and specifically Weber Hall, through 4-H and FFA events. And I always enjoyed also getting to get out of school on a Friday and come to Cattleman's Day with my parents. And I remember always walking through those doors back there, and before we would head up into Weber Arena, my parents, who, like he said, came to school here when Dr. Riley was the department head, they'd always stick their heads in here through the window and tell me about all the old memories they had in the Weber Library and the lounge, and they would just talk about their time studying in here and the memories made. And so every time I would walk in here, and still today when I walk in here, I always think about just looking at the pictures on the wall and seeing all the important people and thinking about just the history that is Kansas State and the history that is Weber Hall. And so fast forward to the fall semester of my senior year last August. We were here early. Like you said, I was on the livestock judging team. I was here early getting ready for the fall run, and had to give a set of reasons, and I was just needed to practice one more time out loud. And when nobody's here before school starts, this is an excellent place to do it. And so I remember walking in the door and just being completely blown away by just the complete renovation and the fresh paint and new furniture. And bottom line, as you can see, the advancements are awesome in here, and we greatly appreciate it. And I know I speak for myself, along with numerous other students. We're in here nearly every day, whether it's studying or taking a break in between class. And like I said, we really appreciate it. And I know that this unique and one-of-a-kind student center is certainly going to serve as a place for many more memories to be made in the future for more generations, and we thank you for that.
Well, good afternoon. So my name is Taylor Bell-Matheny, and as Dr. Nichols said, I'm double majoring in animal science and ag communications. I grew up in Kentucky on my family's Hereford operation, and there developed a passion for the beef industry. So when I came on my visit to Kansas State University, the people, the town, and the College of Agriculture confirmed the uniqueness and passion for agriculture found here in Manhattan. As an ag ambassador, I often get to describe K-State to prospective students as a place that will allow you to grow, to try new things, and most importantly, find a family that is built on one foundation. Soon after my arrival to campus and the first round of exam dates loomed closer, I found myself sitting here in the Once Weber Lounge. When I talk about the family you find at K-State, for me, many of those relationships have been formed right here. The late nights my freshman year studying macroeconomics and the early mornings studying for a beef science exam, I found myself sitting here in the Once Weber Lounge. I can speak on behalf of the student body when I say that we utilize this space for studying for projects, but most importantly, as a place to grow friendships and sit down with a stranger to make a new friend. Coming back to Manhattan for my senior year, I was eager to see the place that had been home for the last few years. Over the years, places around town and in Weber Hall have become home to me. Whether it is sitting in 123 for a lecture or a meeting or coming to hang out in the lounge between classes, there is a sense of family when you walk into Weber. When I came into the lounge for the first time and saw the renovations, I was excited that the student area of Weber had seen a makeover. It wasn't long before Snapchats were being posted by my friends showing off another great asset to K-State. It is because of people like the Jack Riley family that K-State continues to get improvements that are going to help current students and those who will come in the years. Most importantly, the rich history was kept intact to keep educating future generations about the significance that so many have had in the agriculture industry from K-State. From a student perspective, this renovation has changed studying for all students in the department and the College of Agriculture. The addition of technology, new study spaces, and comfortable seating has made the Jack Riley Student Center feel even more like home for students. Thank you, Ms. Riley, for making this possible for me and the 1,200 other students in this department. When we speak about the K-State family, it has shined through once again because of the dedication of a family who wants the best for students. As my days are winding down in a place that I love full well, I will cherish the last few late nights in the Jack Riley Student Center and spending time with people that will change the industry. Thank you to the Jack Riley family for making the Student Center a place that will offer creativity, technology, and group and individual study areas for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Wyatt, Taylor Bell. This time I would call on the family, and I asked Jan said, nope, the boys will talk, so I don't, Brian or Steve, when you come up together.
Thank you. Your comments about giving reasons, I remember in 4-H giving reasons, and I don't think I've ever been so scared in my life. I blocked that out of my memory. But thank you all for being here. This is really special for our family and means a lot. And thanks to everybody who's been involved in making this happen. Several years ago, one of my girlfriends told me, Brian, you really hit the lotto when it comes to parents. And I think she was right about that. One of the neat things about being a professor's kid, at least with somebody like Dad, is if it was a Boy Scout trip in the summer, he'd have time to make time to go on those trips. Or when we had winter break, you didn't just have a couple days off, you had the long break. And we'd go to Missouri, and I know you think Missouri is 2 hours away, but Mom from the Boot Hill of Missouri, it's a long way down there on winding roads, especially when you're 10 years old in the backseat of the Oldsmobile and your brother won't stay on his side of the car. And no iPads to entertain you or anything like that. And to have that time to spend with family, and the reason I want to mention family is as long as I've been in Manhattan since first grade, it was his friends and colleagues in the department and students are part of his family and our family as well. And so it's really special to us for you all to be here and to have the opportunity to make this space happen. And now, I'm going to turn it over to somebody who actually studied animal science at K-State.
Well, thank you doesn't begin to cover it. This place is amazing, and all the people that had to work together to get this done. It's just very, very impressive. And thanks to my brother for insinuating that I actually studied going to school, because there were a lot of late nights, and I appreciate the comments about the late night studying. And I found that I got done with school just in time, because it would get later and later and later every year that I would start cramming for those exams. So to have a place like this available to make that time efficient and to really help the students make the most out of it, I think is a really, really great resource. And seeing Dad take so much pleasure in students succeeding is one of his biggest thrills, I think, was, the bigger the underdog coming in, the greater the pleasure he got from seeing those people succeed. So this is really, I think, a great idea as far as a way to help remember him. So thanks to everybody for making it happen, and Dave for putting all this together to help us remember it. It's just a great, great day.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Steve. When Evan opened with his comments about, I did do the math. And the math is that over half of our staff today were hired by Jack Riley. Our current faculty, over half, were hired by Jack Riley during that tenure. There are a few of us old, Don Good hires around, Ernie, Jeff, and then several, Dr. Odie and Janice Swanson, but the majority are. And then particularly if you throw in there a few more, Ron Pope at the Beef Cattle Research Center and my friend Galen Fink would have been hired by Jack Riley. That was for Galen's first job after school. At this point, we're going to do the unveiling of the plaque, and Evan, if you want to come up and help Jan up here. And what I want to do, we're very fortunate to have a lot of help. I want to, Jan, would you come up and unveil the portrait and the plaque we have? And when we do that, I'm going to read what we have on the plaque for those of you that aren't in the pack. Dr. Jack Riley, phenomenal teacher, advisor, and friend of K-State and ASI students. Dr. Jack Riley was born July 2nd, 1940 in Hamilton, Missouri. He received his BS and MS degrees in animal husbandry from the University of Missouri. From 1963 to 66, he served as Extension Livestock Specialist and an MU instructor. He received his PhD in ruminant nutrition from MU in 1968. In 1971, Dr. Riley joined Kansas State University's Department of Animal Sciences and Industry. He was active in applied beef cattle research, especially in the areas of protein requirements, crop residue utilization, growth-promoting implants, and feed additives. He served as the Beef Research Unit faculty coordinator for 16 years. Dr. Riley taught more than 7,000 students during his 35 years of teaching. Dr. Riley served as department head from 1987 to 2004. During his 17-year tenure, courses were revised to provide greater hands-on experiences, curriculum modifications and innovations were implemented, and undergraduate enrollment more than doubled. He retired in January 2010 and passed away in December 2017. He and his wife Jan have two sons, Brian and Steve. In 2018, the Weber Lounge was remodeled and named the Jack Riley Student Center. This area will serve as a long reminder of the contributions he made to KSU students. Let's give a good round of applause. When we were planning this, you always worry how many people will come, and I'm just so happy so many of you came today. It means so much to all of us, and as I said, I'm very honored to have had great department heads. The majority of my career, Jack Riley was my department head. I became teaching coordinator in 1998, and no one could have treated me any better. I want to close with a poem, and then we have some ice cream and cookies. This comes from William Allen Ward, but I think it applies to Jack. It says, the adventure of life is to learn. The goal of life is to grow. The nature of life is to change. The challenge of life to overcome. The essence of life is to care. The secret of life is to dare. The beauty of life is to give. And the joy of life is to teach. Just one more round of applause for the Riley family. Thank you all for coming. That concludes our program. I know it's getting a little warm in here, but please take some time to look around and see the good work that John and Sabrina have done and put together. And Wendy's back there, I think, with refreshments. Okay? We have ice cream and cookies, and stay as long as you want. Okay? Thank you all for coming.